All right, welcome back. We have Marc Reklau, author of many bestsellers, but some that you may heard of is 30 Days Change Your Habits. You have Love Yourself First, The Productivity Revolution, so many great books. And I was telling you, it's a perfect time to reach out to you because you're in Spain, and you were just telling me most of our listeners are in the States, but Spain is on a serious lockdown right now.
Yep. Still, I mean, most of Spain is already free again. So because they're now de-escalating, but I'm in Barcelona, and it's also Barcelona and Madrid were struck the worst by the virus, and kind of New York. So we were really on strict lockdown. We still can. I mean, we can go shopping. So now we are in a new phase where where even shops open again. But I can, for example, not go to the neighboring county to visit my girlfriend. So you really need a good reason, and they really there's police on the street, and you really need a good excuse, or if not, they will put you a fine starting at $600, going over 3,000, and even in jail if you don't behave. So it's really incredible. It's like a science fiction movie. So in the beginning of because Spain had, I think, the hardest lockdown on the whole world. So we started on the 15th of March, and we could only go out to go food shopping or to go to the doctor or something like that. So 2 weeks ago, we were finally allowed to go out to go for walks. Even that wasn't allowed. And you really needed a good excuse to go out. And for example, police was controlling people, and if you didn't show the receipt of your supermarket, they could put you a fine. I mean, so it was tough here. But for me, it's okay. I'm here on my boat. If you have to be locked up or locked down, where better than in a marina where you have sun, you have water and everything. But it's tough. It has been tough on us. So I hope now, slowly but surely, we're going back to this famous new normal, which I hope, as I'm an optimist, that sooner or later it will be a normal again. Let's see. And yeah, lots of stuff learned when you are locked up for 9 weeks.
Well, I definitely want to talk to you about that. When was the last time you were able to see your girlfriend then?
9 weeks ago. I mean, we Skype a lot and everything, yeah, but physically, so I didn't get a hug for 9 weeks. And if you read my book, Destination Happiness, you know how important hugs are for us, for human beings.
Yes.
So it's really like yesterday, it was incredible. Yesterday, because as a gift, I sent all the workers here who work at the port, I sent them my book. And yesterday, one came to my boat and he wanted me to sign the book, and we fist bumped. And I was like, well, man, that was the first human touch I had in 9 weeks. That's kind of incredible, just a fist bump, because it's just a social distancing, like stay 1 meter away. And yeah, there was strange times, huh?
Well, and for reference, how far does your girlfriend live from you?
Just 20 miles.
So, I mean, a short drive.
Yeah.
And if you can't even be driving on the road. So at some
No, not without a reason. So if I would, I have a little bit of bad luck because I work from home. I'm a writer. She works from home. She's a consultant. So the rules is like, if you don't have a real good reason for something that you couldn't do from home via video conference, you can get in trouble. So we didn't risk it also because she works for me. And I could have said, well, we have to see each other, but really, no. If they would stick a little bit, if they would check a little bit, no. We can do it all with video conference. So that's our disadvantage. So for me, it was like, while they were de-escalating, people who have kids could go out, people who have dogs could go out. And I'm like, and what about writers that work from home? We can't go out, right? And that's just the way it is. So it's a little bit unlucky also, but hey, I mean, on the other hand, in China, after the lockdown, the divorce rates went up. So I think we are good. That's the good thing.
It's funny, my wife and I were talking about that. We were like, I wonder what's higher, the divorce rate or the engagement rate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Some people reacted positively to this, and a lot of people reacted
Absolutely.
negatively.
I think it's so funny because it's, we maybe, I don't know you in the US, but many people have to put on their masks now, right? But on the other hand, this virus really took off our masks. So because we could really see the truth. So we could see people, maybe neighbors that we thought that were cool guys, now they're spying on us, you know, or people that
Yeah.
we thought they are super optimistic, we see they are full of fear. Also, I think in couples, many, of course, if couples didn't work well before, well, they saw it, you know, because sometimes I know I was in a bad relationship, but I was at work 10 hours a day. Who cares? You know, you come home, you watch TV 2 hours, and you can go on like this forever. But if you are together, then it's difficult. And so for us, we would also have been gotten along very well if we would be together. But it's like really the thing. It opens. It shows you the ugly truth. You know, it will show to them partnerships, to the relationships that work well. They will probably go out better out of this crisis. But there will also be many relationships that will break because they just, you know, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough if you're not human. Luckily, my wife and I are pretty accustomed to working on top of each other all the time, so it was pretty much the norm for us. But you know, we were on a long walk yesterday, and we passed someone who was pretty overweight. And this is kind of where I wanted to go with you. I think for a lot of people, this was an opportunity to create some new habits.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, it was an opportunity to sit down and watch a lot of Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to kind of ask you about that. I mean, hopefully, like you said, we're moving towards that new normal and eventually the normal. So we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but who knows? We can see this happen again in the future. No one knows anymore.
Yeah.
With your expertise and your knowledge and all of your studies, what has been the biggest differentiator between people that have taken this time and said, I'm going to be productive and make some positive changes, and those that are just like, this is terrible, I'm laying on my couch?
Yeah, I think it's always the same, you know, it doesn't, so there are optimists and pessimists. And if you're a pessimist, it's easier to give up, right? I think this thing was a very strange thing because in the beginning of the pandemic, I also thought like, you know, now we finally have the time to do everything we always say we don't have time for. So on one hand, this was awesome. And there was in the beginning, I don't know if you saw it, there was this typical post to say, like, if you come out of this pandemic without a new ability, you didn't have just no time, you were just lazy. And I thought, no, that's not true, because this is something incredible. So this pandemic is exactly that. And I told to people that asked me, I said, look, if you want to acquire new habits, this is a fantastic time. I mean, you can really, you can practice getting up early, you have time to write in your diary, you have time to write down the gratitude. But even for me in the beginning, I was like in shock. I mean, I think the first 6 weeks of the pandemic, I was like more unproductive than ever, because I was just too distracted, you know, too many things going on. Shock. So I can also understand people who weren't productive. So I also came to the conclusion, if you remember how we were before, you know, I think many people were just too stressed. And for these people, maybe just getting like a break, just taking a break and not going running from 7 in the morning to 8 at the evening can also be good. So I will not judge. I think it's awesome for people. If you want to, I don't know, better time to learn new habits, but also not a better time to relax. And then it comes back to the personal decision and responsibility of each one of us. So I slacked also a little bit, I have to tell you. But of course, my excuse was, hey, I'm so disciplined. I was working so hard for 4 years. I deserved it, right? But I still needed to look to not slack off too much, you know, because it's easy. Once you start, as same as you can get good habits, you can get bad habits. And then later, if you get the bad habits, it's more difficult to get rid of them. So
I agree with you. I think especially at first I was like, this is great, time to relax. And then it was like, okay, because we also thought it might be 2 weeks.
exactly.
You know, and then it's going on, it's 3 weeks, it's a month, and you're like, I can't just get lazy, I can't just gain. I mean, even my nutrition I was being relaxed on. And then, you know, probably about a month ago, I was like, I need to get back in my routine. And while I've been relaxed and maybe I'll sleep in, I don't get up as early anymore because I have more time.
That's it.
Other things I've, you know, what, like you said, my journaling is improved. You know, I walk every day 5 or 6 miles, which I wasn't doing. So now the question becomes, because hopefully there is the light at the end of the tunnel. If we were talking 2 months ago, different set of questions. But right now, we're starting to hopefully move back towards the new normal. What are some of your best practices, pieces of advice for people that made these changes and now they have to go back to work, or now, or they're going to leave the house again? How can they
Yeah.
continue with all these positive things while hitting normalcy again?
Exactly. If they have done it, and that's the great stuff, the great thing about habits, it's once it becomes a habit, it becomes automatic, and you don't have to think about it anymore, and then it will be a lot easier for them. So for example, let's say somebody got up at 6:30 or at 7, did their journaling, and then they had breakfast with their family, and it was great. So after such a long time, if they have done this for 4 to 6 weeks, now they have to go back to work, it might be very much easier to continue this habit. But maybe you have to adjust it a little bit. Maybe you have to get up a half an hour earlier to still have this time for you to still, and you have noticed, it's also something you were not just thinking about a new habit about having breakfast quietly with your family. You were actually doing it during 4 or 6 weeks. So it's kind emotionally anchored, and you want to keep on with it. So it will be easier. It will be easier to keep on with this habit. So all the habits that you started, it will be a lot easier to maintain them than if you would start them in this stressy work life. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you didn't start a habit yet, you can still start it, because we know that, in habit implementation, the most difficult time is maybe the first 10 days, depending on the habits, but normally the first 10 days you need a lot of discipline. You need a little bit more of discipline. After 10 days, it's not so difficult anymore because you're already getting used to it, to the new habit. And then after day 20, it's probably automatic and you don't even have to think about it anymore. The walk, you just know you go for a walk. It doesn't matter if the sun shines or if it rains or if you want to or if you don't want to, you just go. And that's the great thing about a habit, because once it's automatic, all the excuses go away. All the worries, well, I don't know, maybe no, you just do it. And that's one of the advantages. And what you said before, I think really the difference between people who could acquire some more habits and couldn't, it's also a bit of mindset. It's like, because you told it, you needed to discipline yourself. I needed to discipline myself. It doesn't come easy. Habit change is not easy. Nothing is easy. And you need a little bit of, how you say it, willpower. You need a little bit of willpower to get in that. And also, I think it has also to do with self-reflection, because also we know it, just the thing that we recognize, that we noticed, I'm going a little bit too, I'm like drifting apart from the way of discipline. That already, being aware of it is already, you nearly won the battle. Because when you really like drift away, you don't even notice it. But because like a habit is also, it's going in small steps. It's not that you become lazy from today to tomorrow. It's a process. And becoming unlazy, making good habits, again, is also not from today to tomorrow. It's a process. It's one step, one day after another. As many days as possible, repeating this desired behavior. And that's how you build it. And mindset is a huge thing, yeah.
Well, and a couple of things you just said. So for me, I know when I'm trying to build a new habit during this, so a couple of things that I started to do were, reading more, journaling more, and like something simple, I do a cold shower every morning. And for me at first, I used some sort of app tracker, even if it's just a reminder on my phone or a specific app. And then I realized at some point, I don't need that anymore.
Exactly.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning and I take my cold shower. So typically, like you say, it takes some time to develop that. Have you found that there's an amount of time it takes to lose a habit, a good habit?
No, but it goes quite quickly. I think it goes quicker than to learn it. First of all, but then I think another thing is, once you had a habit and you lose it, the second time around, it will also be easier to get the habit again, because in your brain, you already have this pathway. So that's the thing. So also the losing the habit, I think, because we don't count the days, right? We count the days, how long does it take to get a new habit, but we never count this, oh man, suddenly just one day we notice, I'm watching a little bit too much Netflix. Yeah, but it's not happening one day. It's like since 2 weeks I'm watching 5 hours. That's the problem. But in the beginning you didn't notice it. I also wouldn't give a lot of attention to it. I mean, always concentrate on your goals. Don't concentrate when you notice that you lost the habit. Try to get your good habit as back as soon as possible. And what you said, I mean, good habits now is like definitely gratitude. I think that's an awesome habit. It's easy, doesn't cost a lot, and it's really one of the most impactful habits. And then what you said, because even I notice it, and it's exactly what I do when I want to do a new habit, and I just forget it a couple of days. I will also do a tracker, not from my phone. I do it. I'm old school, so I do like an Excel sheet or whatever. But it really helps. It doesn't matter if it helps us to get the new habit. Why not? And then exactly what you said will happen. The first few days, you need the reminder, and then suddenly you don't need the right because you have your ritual, And it's also always very good when you do a new habit and you said it also, you have kind of a ritual. So I get up, I take a shower, I brush my teeth. When I make my coffee, I will have a glass of water with lemon before I have my coffee. And you just slip this new habit, which in this case would be glass of water with lemon. You put it into an already existing ritual. Then it goes better. Also be prepared, So when you notice that you're journaling, you're forgetting it, well, put your journal on your night board or put it close so that you have
right there, right next to me. Yeah.
So that you have so you have to make it difficult for yourself to fail on your habits, and you have to make it very easy for yourself to make the good habit. I mean, it's the same in the fridge, right? In the fridge, when you have to put the bad stuff far away, so that when you are hungry, you got the healthy stuff is first. Because when we are hungry or when we are stressed or whatever, we always go back to default. And if default is bad food, we will go right to the bad food. So, but if we put it further away or we hide, for example, I don't have any chocolate or things like that. I don't have it here because I know if I would have it here, I would eat it. So I can't even have it here, right? So I have the healthy stuff here. And for people who have both, who can have both still, if you make it easier to eat the healthy stuff than to eat the unhealthy stuff, because you cannot only trust on your habits, you have to do some security measures also, because we will always go for the easiest way. And whatever is the easiest way for us, we will do it.
And that's interesting because a lot of the things I do, I think accidentally I'm doing. For example, I'll take my journal out and put it on the bed. So next time I come by, and my wife's always like, why don't you, asking me, why are these things here and there? And I'm like, because that's my reminder to do it. And I also think that the more you've been doing a habit and the more it is a part of your life, the less likely it is to fall. For me, for example, working out, I can take a rest day and I'm not worried tomorrow I'm not going to work out because it's just life. Where journaling, if I skip a day, I'm worried it'll spiral to 3 or 4 and I force myself to get back at it.
Exactly.
So, you're a huge proponent of gratitude, and you've changed my gratitude practice after I read your book. And then, of course, after we spoke last time, it's a tough time to practice gratitude for a lot of people. I mean, You and I are the lucky ones. We work for ourselves. We have the ability to still do stuff out there. For those that are struggling right now, what can they be doing to practice that gratitude? Because I'm a firm believer in you have to practice it even during the tough times.
Exactly. I mean, ideally, you started during the good times, and then when the bad times come, you already have. But I mean, when you in the bad times, in the tough times, you have to go back to the basics. What can I be grateful for? I mean, maybe you have a family that supports you, parents, and really it gets so basic, and that might be cheesy, but maybe not, because when you look at our people that die every day right now because of this virus, you can say, I'm healthy, I'm breathing. Because this is something also of the things, when I tell that, if I told that somebody 5 months ago, they would say, yeah, right, well, But now really for 2 months, we have seen they have like shown us every day. I'm sure in the US it was the same in Spain. Death count, infected count, death count. And so it's not normal. It's not normal to be healthy and to be alive. And start with that. Really, I mean, you have to start somewhere. And if you are alive, you're breathing, that's already a start. And from then build it. You only need 3 things every day. You can repeat your family, maybe but it's always more difficult in the tough times, that's for sure. And for me, it's very difficult to give advice because I don't know how I would, if I now would have no money, no savings, no family, I don't know if I would be talking about gratitude so easily. But I think it's a start, and I talked to many people that had nothing when they started talking to me, and I said the same thing. I said, look, I cannot give you an advice because I don't know what I would do in your situation, but start with gratitude. Start with gratitude. And they called me 2, 3, 4 weeks later and said, look, nothing has changed. I don't know if I'm going crazy, but I just feel I feel happier. I feel more optimistic. And that's exactly the benefits of gratitude. And then they dig their way out of the hole slowly but surely. So I think there's always something to be grateful for. It's going to be tough times. But what is the other alternative, Stick your
It's
head in the
true.
sand.
So someone's listening and they're struggling, or maybe they're doing okay, and we've talked about this last time, but just to reiterate, if they want to develop a gratitude practice, where would you tell them to begin?
Every day, write down 3 things that you are grateful for. Don't make it in your head. Many people say, oh, I can do it in my head. No, write it down. It's just writing down, and you know it because you're journaling. Writing down is just so much. There, a plus. Don't ask me why. Probably also because when we write something, our brain reacts differently. So just write down 3 things and it can be, there's something I can put myself in these shoes because I was jobless. I started my gratitude practice actually when I was jobless, when I got $800 of jobless like help, and that was it. Fired from my job. I had a lot of savings, or quite some savings, so it's still not that bad. But I started out like with writing down like a coffee that I had in the city center or at the beach, a day of good work. Now, many times I'm grateful for my mom, for my girlfriend, for my friends. I'm grateful today. Surely I will write down that it was good to talk to you again after such a long time. I'm grateful to talk to Jason. I'm grateful for my computer, because without the computer it wouldn't be possible. I'm grateful for my internet connection, because without it I couldn't work, and things like that. So sometimes it really sounds even stupid stuff. But the fun thing is, just when I was talking about it, I get like totally excited, and I get like super grateful. And what is important is when you are grateful, feel it, so I get really goosebumps when I'm talking about it. So to put this emotion, this grateful gratitude emotion in it, because I think it just makes it even more powerful.
I agree. And as you're saying that, I know there are people that are listening that want to, and maybe they're in a relationship with someone who doesn't agree or doesn't have the same mindset. What are some things we can do to help others without being that annoying gratitude person?
Be the example. I mean, that's also one of the greatest things so that I discovered. So I'm very, 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 very seldomly telling people, like I'm telling, of course, in every podcast, because I like it. I share it. I like to share it. But for example, in my family or something, I'm just doing it. I live by example, and I'm sure that if you're example, you do it for you, first of all, and you don't need to convince somebody. It's the same with going to the gym. So you could tell somebody all the time, go to the gym, and they wouldn't listen to you. But when they see you going to the gym every day and seeing what you're doing with your body, and seeing, then maybe sooner or later they will come. And with gratitude, it's the same thing. So it's like, it's difficult when you have somebody that doesn't have the mindset. I mean, if they don't diss you for it, you just do it yourself. Maybe you can, I mean, it gets problematic. And I had that when it happens to many entrepreneurs, when you start a business and you are with a person that is that doesn't understand it and thinks you are crazy, then it gets a little bit more difficult, you know? So that's why I'm divorced, basically. But yeah, but the thing is that still you can, so when your partner doesn't approve of it, but still you can do it for yourself, and they will see the positive benefits. And then maybe they will also, because that's at the end what you're doing. You, as a coach, you're also a coach, you're living it. And people see it and they say, I want to be like Jason. That's our only way. People don't do what you say. People do what they see you do.
Yeah, and that's the same thing we say inside the CrossFit box. You know, we tell people all the time, you can tell them to do this, but when you're doing something else, that's what they're going to do. And I agree. It's something I've, you know, with my journaling and reading a lot on Stoicism and Buddhism while we've been in this quarantine, it's been a lot of like, hey, don't just talk about it, be about it.
Yeah, and when you be about it, people will, they want to be, it's the only way to teach. It's the only way. And it's great because you're doing it for yourself. But when people, that's how you inspire people. You're doing it.
So you've written now, I think, 8 books. Is that correct?
Yeah, 8 or 10. I think 8. And there's, because I have 8 in my series, and then I have like 2 box sets and a couple of workbooks, but written. And then I have another 2 books that are only in Spanish. And so, yeah, but 8, I think it's like 8. My main series is 8, the habits books. And number 9 is on the way.
All
Number
right.
9 is
So,
already here.
well, and that's what I want to talk about too. A lot of people, whether it's a new book or a new project, this feeling of overwhelm and how do I start? And I think a lot of people would look at you and be like, well, he's an author, this is what he does. But without knowing your background of, you did have a job and you were fired, and, you know, like you've alluded to, you know, you really had to start fresh. How do people start these bigger projects? You know, how do people get going if they, and book writing is a big one, especially in the CrossFit world. A lot of coaches and box owners want to start a book, or, you know, want to do something. What's your advice to that?
Okay, that's a great question, because I can go back in time to 2014 when I was not a writer. I was just a normal fired guy, jobless guy. But I studied a lot of how people write books. Right, first I read a lot of books of people who explain how to write book, and then I put it into action. The first thing was, because it's a big myth, you always think, because in movies or something, you always see the lonely writer typing on a computer or on a typing machine with a white paper, and this is not the truth, you know. I mean, even I just read that even J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter, before she wrote the first word, she already know that it's going to be a 7-part series. She had it all figured out. And for me, in my books and self-help books, I also do it. So before I wrote the first word, I was 3 hours sitting. It was great, in a cafe in Ibiza, and I was just like plotting out, what do I want to write about? What do I want to write about? And I wanted to make the typical book like 100 things, and I got like 210 points. And then in the real book, it's only 94, because after 94, I just couldn't anymore. But what I want to say is, the first thing is, you really plot your thing out. You need this table of contents or whatever, you know, your points, what you are writing about. They don't have to be in order yet, but more or less. And then you start writing. And then it's also, I never was writing a book. I was writing 2,000 words a day. So my daily writing goals was write 2,000 words a day or 3 hours, whatever you get hit first. So I started at 6, and then I mostly wrote until 9. And also in this time, research was included. So sometimes if I only wrote 1,500 words, but I did an hour of research, it was okay. Yeah, and then I just did that. And then automatically, after 30, 60 days, you have a book, because usually a book with 30,000 words it's good. You know, it's not so important how many words is in there. It's more important the content must be good. So I write now quite short books, 25,000, but still 25,000 words. but I don't want to artificially pump them up, right? So for example, the power of gratitude, which is really one of my favorite books. I just wanted to write this because it was so important for me, and I wanted to share it. And it has only 13,000 words. It's a very small book. And people told me, don't write it. Don't bullshit people. It's too small. I mean, how can you do that? And I was like, no, I want this. This is, although it's very small and not only 13,000 words, but there's so much power in it because I put everything in there, my heart, my soul, everything. And it's working because people notice that, you know, people notice that I'm not bullshitting them. People notice, hey, there is a guy, he just loves gratitude and he wants to tell us everything about it. And after 30,000, I mean, how much can you talk about gratitude? You know, it's also, you can't write 200,000 words about it. And then what I did is, in the paperback version, I put the first 90 days gratitude journal in there, so that because the best, as we always say, is apply. You know, reading alone is not enough. So people who read it can already start. And in the ebook, I have a link where they can download this 90 days gratitude journal. So they have a little bit about it. So back to the subject. So it doesn't matter how many words, 20, 25,000 is good. And you just every day, 1,000 words, 500, what you can, half an hour, you know, because this is what will mount up. And that's how you write a book.
Yeah, and I think also there's something to be said about you don't want to overwhelm people. You know, if you're trying to get people to start a new habit, start small. I think there's 7 lessons in your book, so it's not overwhelming. It's okay, it's attainable. I can do this.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a good, I would, if somebody listens to us who wants to write a book, I would really suggest short chapters. I think that's the secret of success of 30 days. In my other books, I'm always like having like very short, like 1-page chapter. And my translator from Japan, who helped me a lot in developing the new books, he insists that I only make small chapters. My newest book, it's called Words of Wisdom. It's like motivational quotes, and then I comment them. And this is, so when I look at it, I was like, holy cow, now, or I'm getting very good, or I'm just getting like banal. I don't know it yet. Depends what the reader say, because I really managed to say in 100 words, to drive a point to you in 150 words. So it gets even, my chapters get even smaller, and I don't have enough feedback yet, but as I read it, I like it. So, and usually I'm okay with my opinion. So I'm not too far off when I think, oh, this book could sell or this book not. So what I would also say to you, small chapters. And the fun thing is, and many people tell me that, it's like normally you go to bed and you say, okay, I'm going to read 1 chapter. But then if it's a long chapter of 20 pages, you're like, oh my God, when does it end? I can't no more. And many people told me that they go with my book into bed and they say, I'll read 1 chapter. And I was like, oh, it's already done. Oh, another one. And then they read the 20 pages and it's just a totally different feeling, right? So that's another tip I could give you if you can, short chapters.
Well,
Especially,
and
as you said, because you don't overwhelm people.
yeah, I think for so many people, we all have short attention spans and it's getting
Absolutely.
shorter by the day. And I know for me, when I open a book, like the Daily Stoic or one of your books, it's like, hey, 1 page, I can finish that. And it's no different than setting your small goals. It'll help you spiral, and then maybe in one day you read 2 pages, 3 pages. You know, everything you're suggesting, start and give yourself these little wins and give yourself the ability to be successful.
Exactly. Yeah, I never look, the best book, one of the best books, the 4-Hour Work Week. I never read it because just opening it, because it's so thick, I open it and I'm like, I can't. And then I read other smaller books, you know, because it's just, my attention span is just, I need everything very, very simple, very short. Although this is probably one of the best books.
Yeah, I mean, I have read it, but you're right. It's certainly more overwhelming than other books out there that just, you know, you can chip away at.
Yeah.
And even if they're the same size, just mindset is important there.
Totally.
So as we're hopefully moving towards this new normal, and hopefully you can see your girlfriend again in the future, what are some of the steps that you're going to put into place in order to move these habits forward and continue to show gratitude, continue to create new habits without really knowing what their future will hold?
Oh, because I think I'm just doing it, you know. It's like I'm not. So gratitude, I know it's beneficial for me no matter what time out there it is. Even now in these horrible times, it was super beneficial for me because you just see the world, you know, through a different lens. For example, you know, I was following the whole COVID stuff a lot, but I was concentrating on the positive stories, and they are stories. There are a lot of positive stories. Gratitude helps you to see those. And then the other, I mean, my walking habit. So to go for a walk in the morning and in the evening, that's actually improved, and I think that will stay with me because we were just allowed to walk in the morning or in the evening, an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening. I'm walking an hour in the morning and in the evening, so I hope I don't get in trouble. But the thing is, it's a great attitude, and I'm getting to my 10, 12,000 steps a day, which is awesome. Before I maybe made 6 or 7,000, you know. So I appreciated this when they didn't allow you to go out and walk for a walk during 8 weeks. I mean, I think for the next half a year, I will appreciate my walks a lot because they took it away from me, you know. So, and this is also has helped a lot. And I try to live on a normal life. I mean, do the social distancing. I hope I can travel soon again. If I have to put a mask in a plane, I will put a mask in a plane. But and maybe I'm overly optimistic, but the fun thing is in Spain now, those parts of Spain who have opened again, because I think we have also our short attention span has also the advantage we forget very, very quickly. You know, we forget very quickly. And you go to Spain, to any other region in Spain today who are open, where the bars have opened again. You look, and maybe some people have masks and so, but it looks the same like it was. So I think people once, if we know more about the virus and if the danger is away, at least now in summer, I think people will forget it right quickly, like we usually do, you know. We usually forget stuff quite quickly. So, yeah, so I hope that's why I said the new normal hopefully gets, in my head, hopefully gets quite similar to the old normal. I mean, we will see in airports and airplanes and stuff how it's going to be. But, you know, I live in a little village, and I have to tell you also, apart from everybody wearing masks, not much changed, really, because the shops were never full, you know. And sometimes even when in the beginning of the pandemic, when we could only go out to go for a walk with the dog, to go shopping, everybody was at home. And I went to the city center, and it looked actually more crowded than I have ever seen it during a
Yeah.
week. So, like on a Wednesday at 11. Why? Because normally at a Wednesday at 11, everybody was working, and this time suddenly everybody was out for the supermarket or going with the dog. So I was like, okay, so yeah, I think I haven't also not been infected with fear. So that's the thing, because as a coach, one of the biggest things that I learned was always like, go for the facts, because fear is always there. Whenever you want to do something new, when every book I write, fear is there and tells me how shitty my book is. And then I have to say, well, come on, fear. You're trying it every time again, but you won't make it. So I look at the facts, and when I looked at the numbers and everything, it was not as bad as the media put it, at least in the numbers. Well, some numbers were fake. The Chinese numbers were probably fake. I didn't know that by that time. So, but when you take away fear and you can get more clarity, everything gets easier. And I think that also a lot of things that are happening are just because of fear. You know, I have, here over there is a beach. It's like 500 yards, like broad, you know. So you might see 2 people there when you go out there. And when I see somebody with a mask there, I'm like, that's fear. Because it's impossible that on a 500-yard beach where there are 2 or 3 people, we infect each other if we are 100 yards away from each other. So that's a little bit the thing. And I'm trying to rationalize things like that and always say, okay, where's danger? Danger is real. Fear is not always real. Mostly it's not real. And then we have to distinguish when is fear, when do you need fear to consult you? When does fear need to be a red light or a yellow light? But in business questions, for example, fear for me is always a green light. When I get afraid, I'm like, oh, you are onto something. So, and that's, wow, that was a long monologue about a easy question you made to me, but
No, but it's true. I think there's a famous quote about we suffer more, in our imagination than we do in reality. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what this is. And I think because you have such a strong gratitude practice,
yeah,
it allows you to stay positive throughout this, which
yes,
is just another reason, once this ends, if you haven't started a practice, prepare yourself for the future so you're not afraid, and you always can look to the positives.
that's something it's great that you're reminding me, because that's something I always wanted to say when I get interviewed now a lot about something. So like, right now, maybe we can't do a lot, but one of the first, because it hit us. But what I, in my mind, was in the beginning, so okay, for me, this is a dress rehearsal. Yeah, okay, there is the situation. Maybe we are lucky, we dodged a bullet, maybe it's not as bad as we thought in the beginning, but prepare yourself for the next time. So for me, it's like I'm asking myself, where do I want to be in 5 years, for example, or how do I want, and I'm lucky because for me, my personal crisis came 6 years ago. So I built up my writing business. So I'm okay now. So in my life, nothing changed actually, because a normal day, I'm also locked up in my boat 11 hours and just going 1 hour shopping. So for me, for writers, is actually, we are like, well, we prepared for this the whole time, but still I think, okay, where do I want to be the next time? Stock up. Maybe I should stock up a little bit food for 2 months, because when you saw, I don't know how it was in the US, but if you saw the toilet paper situation here in Europe, when this started, I was like, why is everybody buying so much toilet paper? Can you
Yeah.
eat that? Is there some But when you think then, okay, if there's a bigger crisis coming, and food would be like that, so I think I'm not living only in happy world. I'm always like analyzing and like, if people get like this with toilet paper, how will they behave when there's no food or only limited food? And I also really, even for my situation, I'm thinking, in which country do I want to be next time? Because I'm not happy what Spain did to me. And also now when all Europe is like releasing, because in Europe we were like 2 weeks ahead of you in the US. So all Europe is opening up, and in Spain, they still keep us locked in, and you are like, I said, I don't want to have that anymore. So I'm really actually looking at which countries dealt well with the COVID crisis. Sweden and small countries, Malta, Cyprus, and that influences in my
Well, I
mindset.
think what you're saying is, the idea of practicing gratitude is important. The idea of creating habits is important. But at the end of the day, you also need to be rational and smart and think about things.
Yeah, and have goals. I mean, the practice of goal setting is also one of the greatest practices for me, because even if you don't reach all your goals, or even if your goals now seem totally out of reach, if you do an exercise like, where do you want to be in 10 years, and it's not like, what do you think is possible for you in 10 years? It's like, no, what do you want in 10 years? Because 10 years is a long time. And I made this exercise 7 years ago. And I was poor. I didn't have anything. And I said, well, I want a boat. I want a house. I want a car. I didn't have all that. I want one book, I said. And now 7 years have passed. And I said, oh, wow, I'm missing 20% of those goals. And the only thing I'm missing is, I said, I want to be financially independent. I'm working on that, but all the other stuff I got. So goal setting is also very important. Like, where do I want to be in 5 years, in 10 years? And what I found out in my practice of goal setting, because again, you're writing it down, you are accountable, you can check. So I noticed that every year I achieved like half of my goals, but that was okay, because it was a lot better than not having goals.
Yeah.
And then you get a security, because you say, okay, now for 3 years I was achieving half of my goals. Well, chances are this year again I will reach the half of those goals. So you make your goals, and I always have like 1 or 2 really stretch goals, and And then I said, well, maybe I will reach it, because maybe it's part of the 50% I reach. And then when you do it, that's the nice thing when you have a practice and it goes over years. For me, there came a moment when it was not a question anymore if I reach a goal, but when. And that's awesome, really, because I never had that before. And when the doubts go away and you just put a goal, and you say, okay, when? And you even know that this can change. And maybe in 2 years, it's not a goal of you anymore. But if it is still a goal, you will reach it. And that's also, I think, yeah, this vision, you need vision also for the future, no matter what the future will be, but for you. And then life will put you there, or the reality will show you if it's possible or not, but you need to have a vision for yourself.
Well, I think it's kind of like being, attacking life versus letting life attack you.
Exactly.
I love it. Super positive. You get me fired up every time I hear from you, every time I see your posts. I want to make sure people know where to check you out. They can check you out on your website, marcreklau.com, and you can see all of your books. You're on social media. Anywhere else or anything else you'd like to add to this before we hop off?
I'm everywhere because there's only 2 Marc Reklaus, one with a C, so my Marc with a C, Reklau. And as always, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And whenever you call, I'll be there. I can just tell you that. And I hope next year we can see each other in Naples. Or do you not come back to Naples? Are you in Boulder?
Yeah, we will definitely be in and out. So hopefully by next year I'll see you there.
Yeah, exactly. And if not, I never been in Colorado. So, man, once they let us travel, I will travel a lot. I can tell you that, because that's also another thing what I miss most. Traveling is so enriching.
You will love it here. So you are welcome anytime.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Marc. I appreciate you.
Jason.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.